Welcome back to the Done Deal Show with myself, Terry Flewers, and Dean Jones. So much to talk about today as deadline day approaches and the transfer market has come alive again. We're looking at Amrabat and Cucurella to Manchester United. Chelsea, of course, signed Cole Palmer, but could they still be in the market for more players with the Rafinhas, Smith Rowes, and more linked to them? We will be looking at Man City as well that have completed the deal to bring in Matheus Nunes. Plus, will they be going in for any more players of the Eze links? We're looking at Liverpool with Gravenberch on his way in potentially for around £30 million. But could Palhinha be leaving Fulham to be his replacement at Bayern Munich? There's all that and more to come on the show today. But before we delve into any of the stories, Dean, how are you, mate? You good? You well?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the end of this window. It's absolutely nuts. Like, I honestly can't ever remember someone like this. Maybe I say this every year, but it's just been like so game changing because of the Saudi stuff. Like, we just didn't anticipate it would get to anything like this. I think maybe the only person that knew that this was coming was Ronaldo when he completed his move there and was like promised that, don't worry, you won't be the last one. But like the level of spending, the type of players that they've been able to get over there, it's totally changed as well, the way that you report in a transfer window, and you're scrambling around trying to find new contacts in the game. Like it used to just be, like as a transfer reporter, you could basically survive on having a handful of contacts, especially like around your region, and like that would be good enough. Now you've got to have them in like literally all over the world, people that you can lean on. It's madness. But and Fabrizio Romano doesn't help either. That geezer doesn't seem to miss a beat. Genuinely doesn't sleep. Like I've never seen someone so dedicated to their work as he's been, and like 100%, credit to him for that. But yeah, everyone else has
when I used to work at Barclays, I remember when I got my first really good promotion and was in that sort of a business development role. And I went at it like a freight train, just trying to hit all my numbers, achieve, surpass expectations, earn as much as possible. And I remember some of the older heads pulled me aside to Terry, we like you, you're a good young lad. Stop doing so well because you're going to put more pressure on us. They're going to expect all of us to do this. And it's like Fabrizio sets this standard of reporting where most journalists are like, no, I need to go sleep. I need to, do you know what I mean? Maybe when he's married and has children, he'll slow down a little bit. But
I'm wondering that. Yeah. Or it'll be a football agent by then. Surely he just becomes an agent and he just like puts his feet up at some point. But it's been a mad one, though.
It has been crazy, and we've got lots to delve into today. The first deal I wanted to touch on was Amrabat to Man United. It's a deal, interestingly, that a lot of the United press the other day, the Samuel Luckers, were saying it's very unlikely to be Amrabat. Fabrizio has always remained very strong on the fact that he's the number one target as soon as there's another exit. Some exits are pretty much on their way, and yesterday him and Ornstein kind of put out the tweets around negotiations. It does feel now like that deal is very likely to happen and complete soon. What's your understanding about the? I mean, there isn't much time scale left, but is that a deal you see now getting over the line for Man United?
Well, I think this is the difference. I think a bid is realistic. Is a deal realistic? I think that's what's. I think there's a difference there. Are Man United going to put forward a serious offer? Because if they come forward and offer like £8 million for Amrabat, I've just pulled that number out of nowhere. But if it's a derisory bid, which isn't inconceivable, it's not going to happen. They've got to show that they're serious here. And like, obviously, the last quote put out was like 21 million. I think it's like 28 to 30 earlier on in the window. But they have to go in serious. Like, there's no time to mess about with this. If they actually want Amrabat, it's time to get it done. The player himself has been assured throughout this window that he was fine to take the stance that he has, which has been quite aggressive, really, in terms of like sitting out training and like just not getting involved in Fiorentina's season. Because it was like, don't worry, Man United are coming. He kept being assured that it was okay to act the way that he was acting. Obviously, he starts to get a bit nervous when you're in the final week of a transfer window. It was interesting, the links with Nottingham Forest the other day. I don't know if you saw that they were linked with Amrabat. I'm like, why would Forest suddenly be linked with Amrabat? Like, how does that make any sense? I'm told that like that was kind of a play, like it was to generate interest, to panic Man United a little bit. It was never going to happen, but Forest basically offered Amrabat as part of the long game. And Forest, to be fair, are making very good plans and headway themselves in other areas. But I think that this just needs to get moving. when there was that loan offer there put out about, Man United will pay 1 million now, 1 million later, spread out the cost of this 2 million loan. It's like, genuinely, I think I tweeted, like, this is up there as embarrassing as when Arsenal offered 40 million plus £1 for Luis Suarez.
Do you know what's interesting? I did a stream on Tuesday and I lost my head, really. I'd actually had a bad day off camera and got frustrated at the conversations, because I hold Ten Hag responsible for the players he identifies, and between him and his team they choose to bring in. If Anthony doesn't end up working, I will hold Ten Hag accountable. What I won't hold Ten Hag solely accountable for is the fact we could have signed Anthony a month earlier for 65 million euros, but we ended up paying 95 million euros.
Yeah.
What I won't hold the manager accountable is the fact that the board are they're either not allowing more money to come out, which is what I believe to be the case, or they genuinely have run the club so far into the ground financially that we do have FFP problems, and there literally isn't the money to help the manager continue to complete his rebuild. And there's a lot of talk that goes around that Man United, since Ten Hag's been here, has spent exponentially more than other people, and the media kind of paints that picture. But then I went and looked this morning and I did a little bit of research. It took me 10 minutes. So since he's been the manager of Man United, he has spent, this is in euros because the transfermarket.co.uk work in euros, and they don't include add-ons either. That's why they're the best website, because including add-ons that haven't been paid yet is really weird for me, because a lot of them are dependent on winning trophies, so they haven't been paid yet. So since he's been at Man United, he has spent 427 million euros, which is a lot of money. But in that same time period, West Ham has spent 380, City 380 plus what they're now going to spend on Mateus.
Yeah.
Newcastle will spent 340, Arsenal will spent 334, and Chelsea have spent just over €1 billion. Right. So I look at it and think, I'm not suggesting that Ten Hag's had no money, but this weird sort of notion that he's had loads of money to spend and he should have caught everybody else up's crazy. So when you consider that when he took over as our worst period in 40 years, people last year were predicting us to come 7th and 8th and mid-table. Yes, he spent a lot of money, but it isn't exponentially more than what everybody else is spending. So this weird notion that, well, he had 400 million to spend, therefore he must be at the top of the table. But everybody else that was ahead of him prior to that has spent very similar amounts of money. And this is where I look at the club as being a problem. We need to keep spending to catch up, and then keep spending to maintain hopefully the high level we get to. Yeah. And this is where Man United's board continually let owners down, managers down. They did it to LVG, they did it to Jose in the end. They don't continue the spending that the other big clubs across Europe do to maintain it. Look at City, they win a treble and they've dropped another massive summer on new players because they know they have to. If they let 3 or 4 leave and replaced it with average players, or just said, no, use the academy, there'd be a drop-off of a certain amount. And look, I'm happy that Amrabat should now be coming. I hope he comes. But the execution you're spot on about has been nothing short of embarrassing by the football club again. It really, really has been. And, we started the summer quite well. This player, as you said, this player has turned down approaches. The media have told us Napoli, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, all inquired. He said no to them all. He's a fraction of the price of Mason Mount. I think he's a better footballer than Mason Mount personally. The order of which we've done things has been crazy. And I'm hoping, again, I'm hopeful it gets done. But the execution has been mad. The other deal that we're linked to as well, that again, Nazir Kinsella has said should happen before the end of the window now, is also Cucurella. What's your understanding of the latest surrounding that deal, mate?
Before I go on, is my mic all right? Because my normal mic is not working. I've just realised I'm coming through. Is it all fine? Yeah. Okay, good. Right, it's not my normal mic. I don't know why. I was just messing around trying to fix it, but it's not fixed. Anyway, Cucurella. Look, it's all been lined up in place, and I was told that yesterday was a really positive day from a Man United point of view, and that it was looking okay. I still don't think that this is satisfactory from the Chelsea end of things in terms of the loan fee. So kind of similar to how we had the Amrabat thing coming out yesterday around the loan fee and the breakdown of it. I'm hearing like similar issues at the Chelsea end. They're not like major issues that can't be fixed. And actually Chelsea do think that it will end up happening. But at the moment, the deal's not in place because financially, it's not satisfactory. So same old problem there for Man United. But look, Chelsea want him to go, and they actually hope it goes so well that Man United end up buying him. So that it is one that they hope and think will be okay in the end. United looked at various options. and have decided that Cucurella is the best out there that is actually gettable right now. I mean, I'll be honest, like I'm a little bit concerned from a Man United point of view, because you're looking at a player here who's been out of form for a long time, and more than that, hasn't had a positive mental frame of mind, I don't think, in his performances either. So you think of, how Man United have been fragile mentally at times under Ten Hag. Cucurella kind of fits in with that. I don't feel like this is a guaranteed fit from the off. Like, I think he's going to need time to settle. Hopefully he proves me wrong. Like, I think he's a great player, and Man United, when they've been looking at him, have been really leaning on the performances they used to see from him at Brighton, and seeing the actual level of the player, not the recent form. So hopefully for them, that can pay off. But yeah, Man United have been having to look at all sorts of options, and even to just go back to Amrabat, like if that deal did collapse and it couldn't happen, I think the big panic and the big worry of Man United would be that you're back in the old situation of, like, suddenly you've got an option like they ended up with Weghorst, like they ended up with Sabitzer. Like, you're just finding a cheap loan that is just like, oh, why are we back in this situation? Of all the people that they've been looking at this summer, I think even Onana at Everton at one point, they were looking at and linked with that. I think at the moment you see Ndidi going to Nottingham Forest from Leicester. You're like, much worse options you could be going for than looking at something like that. Early in the window, I was told about Grujic at Porto. Now, I'm not saying that he's like an absolute world beater right now. And Man United are looking at a Liverpool cast-off. But now I'm thinking, well, what are you going to end up if this does fall through? I know you were messaging me the other day about, like, Man United. I did a chat with Give Me Sport, and one of the quotes that I said was, like, I'm just told, like, if Amrabat doesn't come through, then it'll be a surprise name that lands. And that's because United are being now pushed names by intermediaries as potential fallback options. So it's just a slight worry, because you end up going from this level of player, starting at Frankie de Jong, going through to Onanas and Amrabats and Verrattis, and you start to get down to, I don't know, you'll be linked with random people from Holland and France, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is, again, a lot of this stems from us not being able to. So people always talk about other clubs are able to sell people at a higher level. That's fine, but that's not on the manager.
Yeah,
it's not the manager's fault that we have a lot of deadwood that not very many clubs want. And even when they have come in this year, and I think £30 million for Scott McTominay is fair, and we've kind of turned our nose up at it. We should have paid Maguire off, because yes, it would have cost us 7 million, 8 million to get rid of him, but you would have generated 30 million of income, and that would go into a transfer kit. And as we know, you don't pay transfers in lump sums up front generally. That 25 million is enough for a down payment year one on a 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound potential player with the way it works. And that's where the manager has been let down. The ownership haven't been able to sell, or have done a bad job in that process, which then puts you in a position where you're limited. And when I look at, Cole Palmer going to Chelsea for 40 million, look, he's played 40 odd times. Theoretically, he's won trophies. He's not been an integral part, but there's a lot of talent there. They got 25 million for a keeper that's not kicked a ball in Premier League football. So where they raised 20 million not long ago for a player they sold that's not made a professional debut. We've sold our academy players this summer for under £1 million who are in the same brackets. We are so bad at doing that business. And again, I've said to years for fans, they always talk about it's not my money, I don't care. You should. If you're bored overpay and undersells, you burn the candle at both ends and you run out of money. And again, I've been spouting this since the David Moyes days, and fans just fucking ignore it like it's not important. And it is. And we do this all the time. And then we end up in this, well, I hate that we've got Weghorst here, but Weghorst is a symptom of the real problem at the football club. So look, I mean, Cucurella, just on back to him. Yeah. I've said I'm what I call I'm 80-20 on this. I'm genuinely 80-20 on this here. 1 second. Igal, hang on a minute. Igal in the chat. Are you the real Igal or are you a fake Igal account? Because I swear you're one of my moderators already. Let me just go and check in the community here. No, you're already a managing moderator, so that must not be the real Igal in the comments. I thought I was getting scammed there. I'm not going to add you because you're not the real. I don't think you can't be the real gal because you're the real gal's a managing moderator, so we can pick other moderators. Anyway, I digress massively. That can't be the real gal because I just went and checked on my settings. But with him, I'm 80-20. I'm 80% very nervous about this deal because last year he was horrendous. But there is this 20% part of me that thinks the year before that, he was one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
City wanted him, Chelsea wanted him. And if this time last year, if we were doing this deal this close to deadline day, Man United fans would have been buzzing. So there is an element of me that thinks if Ten Hag can improve him like he's improved Bruno, like he's improved Rashford, like he did improve Luke Shaw, like the AWB's got, if we can get him back and get him playing well, then there's an element of me that's excited. But maybe it's because the first 2 games that Mount played, he looked like the Chelsea Mount of last year. There's this part of me that just thinks, we're just buying another guy that's not finished, but just isn't good enough. I am really nervous about it. I think that the reason I was actually surprised is going for somebody like Cucurella is I feel like, well, what happens when Shaw comes back? And I mean, maybe it's that Shaw is seen as maybe he becomes more of a centre-half alternative as well. And maybe there's going to be more of that from Luke Shaw going forward, because if you get Cucurella playing well again and then Luke Shaw comes back, Luke Shaw goes straight back into the team. Like, there's no way that Luke Shaw is staying on the bench, is there? So then what happens? So I find that a little bit strange. So I was laughing a second ago. Lukaku's just holding up his new shirt at Roma. He's got the number 90 shirt. Is that the amount of clubs he's played for now? Jesus. Oh, no, 90,
the number of clubs he was linked with this summer.
90. That's the money that other clubs still owe on these transfer fees or something. There's a subliminal message in there. But yeah, I hear you. It's I'm not overly gassed about it. But sometimes they're the right deals. A few people are saying Ten Hag's improved nobody. Again, if you believe that, you're a fool. So to say he didn't improve Rashford as an example last year is a lie. On Luke Shaw, though, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a little bit connected to Man United. He used to work there, knows a few people. He could be completely wrong. And he did say, I haven't spoke to Luke Shaw directly. He said, but talking to someone at the club, he said there's a problem with the muscle surrounding where the leg break was connected to it. He explained it in layman terms because he's not a doctor either, that it's something to do with like muscle degeneration, and there's a lot of stress on the muscles in that area since the leg break and the amount of football he's played. And hearing that made me think, well, that makes a lot of sense in terms of why maybe we're looking to look for somebody else, because if it's only a month, you wouldn't bother. If it's only 2 months, you probably wouldn't bother. Is there a longer term issue now the club has discovered around Luke Shaw where we have to look? That's the only thing in my head around this deal, because initially they said he'll be out for 6 weeks. And I thought, well, why do you buy a replacement for 6 weeks?
And I agree. And what I found weird too was a couple of days ago when I was doing my regular daily calls on Amrabat was I was speaking to someone who is well connected, and he said, well, the thing is that I don't expect anything on Amrabat today. The absolute priority is sorting out this left back. And I was like, well, how's that suddenly more important than finding the midfielder that you've been looking for like 2 years, 2 months, whatever you want to call it? But how was Amrabat? The guy has literally been talked about since the window opened, suddenly preceded by Cucurella at Chelsea. Like, it must be, you're right, it must be a more serious problem.
Sometimes you've got to read between the lines and think logically about a situation and kind of make it make sense. But viewers, let us know what you think about Amrabat and Cucurella to Manchester United in the comments section below. Also smash like buttons and subscribe as well. Benny here says, actually, Ten Hag never improved anyone. Then how did he take the team from the predictions of 8th that everyone gave us to 3rd in the league, winning a trophy, FA Cup final, Rashford having his best ever season, Bruno performing defensively, more clean sheets than anyone else in the league? Like, Benny, again, I know you're a rival and you hate Man United, but expand on your claim. And if you can stumble by me and make me go, damn, you've got me, I'll give £2,000 to charity of your choice today, live on air. There we go, my friend. Tell me how I'm wrong on that. Luck. Johnny says luck. I like that. The Beanie here says Amrabat who? Are you a Liverpool fan? Yeah, the guy that turned down your club, bruv. That Amrabat, my G. That Amrabat. Moving on to Liverpool. Gravenberch. Talks have begun. According to the German media, reportedly they're expecting a 30 million bid for the player to come. Again, it's going to come in the next day or two, isn't it? Like it's not going to come in the next week. But is that one you now see Liverpool getting over the line? And if so, is that it for Liverpool? Would that be their last deal?
I actually didn't hear that it was going to be as high as 30 million. I was told, I spoke to someone earlier on today who was expecting it to be a few million over 20. So if it ends up going for that low, then it's a good deal for Liverpool. I can't remember what he joined. I should have probably checked this. How much he joined them for? I think it was like 15 or something. But so I don't think they're looking to make that much on Gravenberch anyway. But yeah, that deal certainly moving forward. Obviously, Bayern have got pressing issues at the moment in terms of finding a new number 6. So linked with a couple of players that obviously affect us over in the English market. The primary one from me is obviously Palhinha, being a Fulham fan. Like, this is the most unwelcome news you could ever imagine. They've also been linked with Eric Dyer at one point. So that was interesting. And I think that we're at the stage basically where Fulham are waiting to hear from them on a bid, and until that offer arrives, it's hard to know exactly how serious they take it. Obviously, in the same conversation, I mentioned Eric Dyer. Scott McTominay is actually now the main backup option for Bayern Munich if they don't land Palhinha. So there's huge knock-on effect here to like what happens for all these teams. Like Man United, you're like, okay, well, if they did suddenly get 30 odd million for Scott McTominay from Bayern Munich. By the way, if Scott McTominay ends up at Bayern Munich after all this, and he's absolutely laughing.
Yeah, because he's going to win so much stuff.
He's going to be more successful than any player that Man United have currently got in their squad.
Mate, it's crazy. Like I actually think. Listen, we know how good Palhinha is. Scott McTominay will do well in that league. I actually think he will. Yeah. He'll do very well in that league.
Yeah, I mean, Palhinha would go in there and be literally one of the best players in the league. Like, I genuinely, after seeing Palhinha as often as I have, I personally think he's the best central midfielder in the Premier League. I don't think people realise how good Palhinha is. It was fun. So on our podcast on Ranks, the episode went out yesterday. We recorded it Tuesday, and I opened the show. It was like a deadline day special, and I was like, okay, like the thing I'm most excited about right now in the transfer window is Fulham might actually keep Palhinha. This is absolutely ludicrous. Like, he's hiding in plain sight as the best midfielder in the Premier League, and nobody's signing him. Even at £80 million, this guy is an absolute steal. If you're buying Caicedo at 115, you're buying potential. Well, Palhinha's already living out that potential. And if you want someone that's going to go in and change your season, change the dynamic of your team, cover ground like you can't imagine, and just intercept play, read play, Palhinha is your man. And at that moment, there was no sniff of this Bayern Munich story. So I was trying to be like, I'm excited. It looks like we're going to keep him. And then about 12 hours later, just as the episode came out, this Bayern Munich story broke. And unfortunately, from a Fulham point of view, like, the interest is very real. Palhinha is very interested in it. And obviously, from a Bayern and Liverpool point of view, it starts to become quite exciting, specifically for Liverpool, who now have that door opening for Gravenberch. Yeah, I do think this will be their last signing. It's funny because they said that Endo was going to be their last signing, and they were trying to push that statement out there. And, you know, obviously they went in for Amrabat, they were still in for Gravenberch, and all over the past 10 days or so, I said, and anyone's asked, like, no, I don't believe that that's the end to it. I don't believe that this is Liverpool's midfield, which probably takes us on, mate. We've got to address the Mo Salah situation. I think that if Liverpool do lose Mo Salah, I don't think they can replace him. I don't think they can even attempt to replace him at this stage of a transfer window. Now, the club's stance is that Salah won't be going. And all the Liverpool reporters are kind of echoing that.
Of course they are.
The player's tempted. The player's more than tempted. The player's quite keen, from what I'm told. And I spoke to a contact today who I know has spoken to someone who's very close to Mo Salah. And he was like, mate, I'm almost expecting this to happen. Not wondering. I'm almost expecting it to happen.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty significant. I mean, obviously, like, the money on offer is absolutely outrageous. I think it's more than that too, though. I think he likes the idea of the kind of icon status that he would have over in Saudi Arabia and what would mean for his own personal profile. Obviously, it helps if you're going on similar wages to Cristiano Ronaldo. But it's a really difficult one because for Liverpool, they don't want to lose Mo Salah right now, and I understand that. But I would kind of flip that too and be like, have you ever been so well prepared? And are you ever going to get an occasion when you can lose Mo Salah and potentially be okay, like the situation you're in right now? Because if you did get, I mean, let's say it's £120 million for Mo Salah, you've already got in your squad to play up front, Jota, Diaz, Gakpo, Darwin Núñez. People not really taking into account at the moment that Dominic Szoboszlai can play wide on the right. He can play on the right side of that attack, especially if they're bringing in another midfielder. If they do bring in Gravenberch can go into the middle as an option there, and Szoboszlai can be a rotator out on the right. Also, Harvey Elliott played a lot of his time, a lot of his football as a right-sided attacker. So Liverpool have already got a couple of extra options that can play in those positions. Darwin Núñez has just shown what he's capable of if you give him a chance in this team. I know it was Salah feeding him one of the chances, but still. And then you kind of sit on this money, which, by the way, can you imagine FSG getting an offer of like hundreds of millions of pounds for an asset?
Listen, you have to look at the deal. In terms of Liverpool, they've also got a player who should not be at right back that I think would thrive further up the pitch, and that's Trent.
Yeah.
Yes, he's right-footed, but I've been talking about this a bit recently, that I think there's going to be another change in football tactics soon, where we're going to stop. I think you're going to start to see less inverted inside forwards, wingers used in the coming years. And people are going to go back to, well, let's go on the outside and start cutting balls back into the box, a very old school approach. But defenders have become so used to defending against wide players cutting in onto their stronger foot. Yeah. How much practice are they now doing on people going on the outside? And we've seen already the attacking wingers have now stopped essentially, and everyone's looking to invert their wingers, and there's changes there. So there are options for Liverpool. On top of it, you have to consider Mo Salah's motivation. And we were talking off air about this. He's been offered £350,000 a week tax-free. So we have 280 odd million to him, which is, he's already a millionaire, but this is ultra rich. Yeah. On top of that, I was talking to a few people that I know that are connected to let's say connected to Egypt. They're Egyptian. About the guy Mo on Never a Foul that spoke to us about. And reached out to a few friends of mine I used to work with that are from that part of the world. I said, what have you heard about this TV deal? And essentially what I've been told is that he's been offered a percentage around 2.5, maybe even 3% of the revenue generated from people that sign up to the TV broadcaster in Egypt to watch the Saudi League. He will earn a percentage of the revenue. So if 20 million people sign up to a $5.99, $10.99, $12.99 a month package, which is more than just watching Saudi football, but it includes that. How much more money is that going to be for him over a 3 to 4 year period? 3, 4, 500 million pound more? Yeah. So much money. Yeah. And that isn't about him becoming super rich. There's this element of, he's a big philanthropist, does a lot of work for charity. Imagine what he could do for those charities, for those things that motivate him, with £400 million versus 10, 15 million pounds. And this is where football fans, this isn't a dig at Liverpool. This is a genuine view. For some people, there are much bigger things out there than just winning trophies for your football club, especially once they've achieved those things. He's already achieved greatness at Liverpool. He's your greatest ever Premier League player. To be offered this kind of money and this kind of deal, he may just look at it and say, it's generational wealth for my family, an extended family forever, and I can do so much good back home for my people with this money. Yeah. It's a huge motivator. And I think Liverpool, look, he may not go, but you've had Ornstein today say never. Yeah. And if it was completely off the table, you know as well as I do, Ornstein would have found out and would know and would say no chance. The fact he's saying never say never means there is a chance this happens. The fact that Liverpool have said he's not for sale and we can guarantee Liverpool fans he's not leaving. The fact that the agent of Mo Salah hasn't come out and shut this down yet tells you it's not fake news. It tells you there's a possibility that this happens. Yeah. Whether it may not, but to sit there and bury your head in the sand and pretend it won't, personally, I think it's the wrong way to look at it. I would prepare yourself for it may be happening, because the money's huge. There's a draw now to go to that league for one reason or another. And your owners, as you just said, are FSG. And if they get, they still, they're talking 150 million, say they put the bread up, say they go, okay, look, we'll do 160 all in. They've got the money. Listen, the Saudis have got the money. It's nothing to them. It is.
Yeah.
These people sell 12 million barrels of oil a day.
Yeah. I think this is a massive day for Liverpool, actually. But, you know, tomorrow, obviously, the day that everybody looks forward to. But actually today, I think, in terms of, I mean, it's very easy to have a stance of saying he's not for sale, you know, posting pictures of him on your socials to show that he's in training and all the rest of it. That's all fine because there's no bid actually come in at the moment. They haven't had an offer. It all changes. Once the bid comes, that's when Salah can actually show his intentions, when he can actually declare how he's going to feel. At this moment in time, Salah's not going to be sitting out training, is he? Like nothing's actually happened at the moment. You know, but 4,000 miles away, there's some very rich Saudis rubbing their hands together about the major disruption they're about to cause to the establishment.
Did you see? There's a video. This I don't know who he is. He's just a Chelsea fan, and he did this thing about. He goes, "I took my girlfriend to her first Chelsea game." And he goes, I posted a picture of her. She's a good looking lady, and she's standing by the pitch. And he said, then I couldn't believe it. Like, I think Mahalo Mudryk liked the picture and then started following his girlfriend, right? he was calling the guy out, like, I ain't worried about you. I don't sweat you, but what you doing, bruv? And I'm like, yeah, you're not acting worried now. If you saw Mahalo Mudryk literally start chatting to your girl, then you're like, oh no, like he's good looking, he's healthy, he's rich, he's in good shape. Then the insecurity comes in. Everyone's confident until you see it happening. My missus will never cheat. And then you see, you know, Brad Pitt walks up to her and starts chatting. Maybe he's a bit old now. Who's the the young men that all the women are thorning over? I don't know. Then the insecurity comes in. So as you say, if that bid comes in, then there we go. It's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, Liverpool, Gravenberch, the bid's expected to come in today. They're saying, I will say this as well. Fabrizio just tweeted actually saying, understands that Liverpool have confirmed to Bayern they've officially bid. They're ready to make the official bid. So, yeah, they will be bidding. That's just come out from Fabrizio Romano.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, today was supposed to be the key day around that one. I know Gravenberch had no intentions of being part of anything at Bayern today. He's not due at training. So, Liverpool, it's a great opportunity for them to actually make the most of this moment. They've literally been on Gravenberch since day one of this transfer window. I remember writing, Liverpool are hoping they'll have clarification over Gravenberch's future with Bayern Munich within the first 2 weeks of the transfer window. Well, here we are in the last 2 days, and they still haven't got that indication until right now. But Gravenberch is available to them, and that's because Bayern now have inside their list of players that they will now go for in midfield, and that is Palhinha, McTominay, and a little bit further down there at Dyer.
Yeah, I hope they get McTominay. I hope they get Palhinha because it'll weaken Fulham when we have to play him. To be fair, but do you know what's interesting as well? Though, look, I think Gravenberch is excellent. I'd love Man United to have signed him. You know, we've prioritized Amrabat. We haven't sold enough to go after him as well. I'd love to have gone head to head with Liverpool to get him. I really would. I'm a little jealous that Liverpool were getting him. I think he's phenomenal. Endo, I don't have an opinion on a player that I'd never really heard of until now. No. I kind of remember hearing his name at the World Cup, but I don't really remember him. Liverpool fans, though, should still be, again, they're kind of basking in this, we've got Gravenberch and he's rejected Man United. And fair play. Like, if we've been rejected, I can take it on the chin. But the fact you bid £110 million for Caicedo and you were still trying to sign Lavia, so that's 160, 70 million, and you're going to end up spending around 40 million on alternatives, the question should be, hang on a damn minute, where's the rest of that money and why haven't we spent it? Where's the rest of that money? Why haven't we gone and bought another centre-back? They need one desperately. They look horrendous at the back. Why haven't we gone and bought a right-back that can defend? Why haven't we gone and done these other things? So Liverpool fans, I think, should be happy with Gravenberch. I think he's talented. But overall, to go from trying to buy Lavia and Caicedo and bidding 170 million for the pair to spending around 40 million pound on Gravenberch and Endo, I don't think there's a Liverpool fan on planet Earth that thinks they've ended up with the same level of quality as they were going for. Plus, you know, the money's there, so they should still be demanding more in the coming days. It's the same as Man United fans should be angry at their ownership. Liverpool fans, if they're kind of defending this, all you're doing is promoting mediocrity, in my opinion. But that's just my take. In moving on from Liverpool, in terms of Chelsea, we saw them sign Cole Palmer yesterday. I wouldn't say it was completely out the blue, but nobody really. No Chelsea
much was,
There was talk. I remember seeing a tweet from Fabrizio maybe 10, 11 days ago and Simon Phillips, but there was no Chelsea fan that was sitting there and please bring us Cole Palmer? Not one.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. It was obviously mentioned in passing as a name. I mean, you can obviously, as a journalist, you're going to claim whatever you can in this industry because your victories are few and far between these days. So if you've listed a player that nobody else has mentioned, then you should go for it. But yeah, I mean, it's staggering, really, to me. I mean, I've got a very confused stance on what Chelsea are doing here. I mean, to be a player like Cole Palmer, as far as I'm concerned, Chelsea should, for all the investment that they've made in their own academy, to not be able to bring through their own version of Cole Palmer, I don't think is really okay. To have to go and spend £45 million to a Premier League rival for a player that Man City clearly don't think is going to fit in with their pathway shouldn't really fit Chelsea's. But when I spoke to a Chelsea contact, he said, well, hang on, look at what Man City are doing right now. Man City are champions of Europe. They're trying to defend a treble, and there is no way that they're going to be integrating players like this and taking a gamble on them. Whereas we've dropped off in that standing recently. We've completely remodeled our philosophy, and these are the profile of players we're going for. So we have got a bit more leeway to give him that 2-year pathway to actually fulfill his potential. So when you look at it from there, I kind of understand it. I still think that, for example, another Chelsea contact was saying that there's a player within their academy called Murray Hutchinson who's gone out and loaned to Ipswich. He's like actually pretty similar to Cole Palmer. Like he's like, and you wonder for these players, what are they thinking? Because Chelsea now basically just a shop. Their academy is just a shop basically where they're going to make talent, sell it, and then go and buy similar talent from elsewhere. So it's a bit of a strange one. How much impact can Cole Palmer have this season? I wouldn't have like huge expectations. I think it'll be interesting to see how he settles into trying to become a regular in a Premier League team, which Man City were never going to give him. I have heard a few murmurs around there being problems with Mudryk at the moment at Chelsea and how much game time he might be getting in the foreseeable future. So maybe there are still issues in that Chelsea front line that they've been trying to address. But ultimately, what would you say is Chelsea's barometer for what they can expect this season? Top 6? I don't think that. I don't look at this Chelsea team right now and actually expect them to compete for the Champions League spots. And actually, when you look at the fact they've spent basically £1 billion, they should be trying to win the league. And I can't get away from that fact. I just can't get away from the fact that you've spent £1 billion in a year. That should be a team that is capable of winning the Premier League. It should be. I don't care like whatever anyone says about needing time to gel, needing this, needing that. £1 billion is absolutely extraordinary. And you should be going on and winning the Premier League this season.
I understand. I mean, what they've done, Chelsea, is so unprecedented in the sense of they've spent $1 billion. They bought Koulibaly and Aubameyang. I can't think of off the top of my head, and they've bought so many players, that's why I can't remember. Raheem Sterling's probably the other one, who were established footballers or seen at a high level when they bought them in. Nearly everybody else is potential, as far as I'm aware. And Chelsea fans watching, you'll probably put a name or two in there that I've forgotten. Please feel free to do so. It's almost like they've gone for this project, which is buy so much youth, so much potential. We'll develop it into a brilliant team, but it will also see us through the next 6, 7, 8 years. Part of me is intrigued to watch this. I also think they've bought some very good young players, Caicedo, Enzo, Lavia, to name just a few. But I do, in the short term, I think to myself, what can they win with this? And I think maybe a domestic trophy, that's probably about it until these players become more established. What I do find intriguing, it's not a dig at Chelsea, is there's very little talk from the media about pressure to deliver after spending that amount of money. And the reason I say that is maybe because I've seen my club drop £380 million, and you should be competing with Man City. And then I see Chelsea drop $1 billion, and everyone's saying, oh, they would do well to make top 4. I'm just kind of, I'm intrigued by the difference in reaction. And look, I think it may be because Chelsea bought young people and people are saying, look, they're just not going to win the league with these young players. But when does that pressure start to build up upon them? And maybe Chelsea fans could answer that for us in the comment sections.
I mean,
it's really someone here says no excuses, and I'm like, no, listen. And if you think there's no excuses and they should challenge for the league because it's spent a billy, then fair enough. Then I appreciate your opinion, but there's what you should do after spending $1 billion. But then looking at the reality of the situation, I don't think their young squad can win the league this year. They definitely can't win the Champions League because they're not in it.
No.
It's going to take 2 or 3 years of nurturing this group, developing this group, to, in my opinion, to make them good enough to win the league. It's going to take 2 or 3 seasons to do that because of their age. Whether you spend £1 billion or £100 million, if you buy loads of young players and you don't have a very good, elite, established core through your team, like the great Barcelona team did with Messi and the like came through, like the class of 92 had, unless you do the two together, you very rarely win in the short term. Rarely, in my experience as a football fan. So my expectations are based on the reality of the situation rather than what they've spent. But I do understand the question completely.
Yeah, and I think, look, one thing I will give Chelsea credit for is that the owners went into that football club. They saw a squad that they felt was getting too old, wasn't going to win the Premier League or Champions League again in the next couple of years. And they were all on huge wages. So their stance was, we need to rebuild this, and we'll do it over a period of time so that in 5 years' time, we actually are dominating English football again. And I was speaking to somebody else yesterday. It was like, to be fair, they have completely gone through with what they planned to. And the wage bill is basically now they're paying half per week of what they were when they took this job on. So in that sense, they have completely remodeled and they are better set for the future. So while I'm really happy to criticize them for spending $1 billion on transfer fees and that they should have very high expectations right now, their own expectations actually were over a 3, 4, 5 year period and to bring down the age of the squad. And they do now have a very good young squad in place. Did make me laugh though the other day. I saw that MK Dons played a cup game against Chelsea under 21s. Well, that could actually just be Chelsea's first team. Like, what's the difference between Chelsea under 21s and Chelsea's first team these days? Not a lot.
Yeah,
but,
half the expectations that people set, it's all just about planting a seed to attack rivals later down the line. Because all I've heard all summer is that nobody can beat City to the league; they're too good. But Man United spent £380 million, so they must win the league. Chelsea spent $1 billion, so they must win the league. Arteta spent $730 million now, so he must win the league. But four out of those 5 teams mentioned, or 4 teams mentioned, sorry, 3 will fail to win the league. So if you set the expectation they all must win the league, then you're guaranteed to have three outright ranked failures, no debate. The difference is, the question you've got to ask yourself is, Chelsea spent $1 billion, but have they closed the gap yet? No. Now they're looking to do it a different way. They're looking to build a team over the next 2 to 3 years that will compete. Yes, they could have gone out and spent £1 billion on 6 or 7, maybe 8 established players, but there's no guarantees in that working. We've seen what happens when you try and do a Galacticos team in the past. That don't work either. And I thought what they've tried to do, I think they looked at Chelsea's situation, and Chelsea fans said this for many years on this channel. Yeah, we won the Champions League, but for 5, 6, 7 years, we've been papering over cracks. Maybe the thought was we came in and maybe going out and buying 5 world-class players, again, would be papering over the cracks and the foundations have got an issue. Maybe their view is we need to rip it all out and start all over again. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get back to near the top. But it's the only way to do it in a clean way where it's sustainable after that. And I know there are a lot of football fans now that live in this world of, no, you've got to do it now, though. You have to achieve it now. And if you haven't achieved it straight away, even if you achieve it in the future, it's almost like seen as not pointless, but it's still there's still like a smudge over it because you didn't win straight away. But if there are 2 or 3 teams that are already better than you, I don't understand the genuine expectation that everybody has to go and win straight away, especially now in the Premier League where there's potentially 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that all have similar spending capabilities, billionaire owners, and are all really good. I think that we have to, again, I think a lot of it is a prelude just to be able to say, you spent that and you're crap. Yeah. I think it's like cheap shots. I think it's a cheap shot half the time. I get your challenge. I understand the shot. The one thing I would say is they spent $1 billion and they don't have a player yet that anybody's confident can bag enough goals. No. That's probably the only area with Chelsea where I would say maybe dropped a bit of a bollock there.
Yeah.
Because goals are important, but
Yeah, I don't trust him. I just had a message, by the way, on Amrabat, just saying that there is still the possibility of a loan with obligation, but it would have to be more than the 2 million. I think they want closer to 5 million for the loan, and then the obligation, I think it ends up being about 22, like has been mentioned. So might be something to look out for, but that probably does help Man United too, if that can be the conditions on which Amrabat is landed with an initial loan that turns into a transfer. That would fit in with the financing that we're hearing about.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'd be very good again if we could do that. If it helps, listen, I just want the man in. I'm at a point now,
you don't care what it costs at this point.
I want him in because I said it yesterday. Amrabat will be a game changer for Man United's midfield. It gives us cover for Cass. Certain games, like I'd love him in today. I'd love it over the line today, but by tomorrow, so that he could play against Arsenal. I'd love him to be able to play in that game because you could put Amrabat next to Casemiro. It makes me confident going away home against these bigger teams because you're not running through that midfield, in my opinion. You're just not. Yeah. Whether he's fit enough to play this weekend is a different question, but it gives us something different. Plus, we need more size and power. So many of our players, I looked at the average, like so many players under 6 foot, so many players that weigh below 65 kilos. We need players in there that are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", strong, and technically gifted. We need a mixture. So, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Carl here says, people on your panel always say Arsenal must win the league because of money. So I kind of get what they're saying when they say, well, if Arsenal don't win the league, it's a failure. And I think there comes a point of when you look at your club and the development and its project and where you're at in terms of when clubs do start genuine rebuilds like Arteta did, you have to give people a grace period. And that's the one thing that frustrates me is people love context when it suits their purpose and not when it doesn't. What Poch has taken over genuinely is one of the biggest messes we've seen in Premier League history. A bloated squad, a team that hasn't challenged for a league title in 7 years, legacy issues, FFP issues. You've got to fix all of that. He hasn't taken over Chelsea at the peak of their powers and spent 500 million on top. You have to consider that. Ten Hag took over Man United after our worst season in 40 years, 10 years no challenging for no Premier League, 6-year trophy drought, and the world and his dog predicting us to finish somewhere near mid-table. So to expect him to go from that to being as good as City in a year is unrealistic because City didn't go from being an average team to what Pep's turned them into in a year. It took them a long time to get to that point. Arsenal the same. Yes, the first couple of years under Arteta were worse than the last couple of years prior to that with Emery and Wenger. But they had to rip it apart to get to where they are now. The idea that like Arsenal were in such a mess internally, externally on the pitch, you couldn't just, in my opinion, buy 3 world-class players and go and win sustainably. Because the fact that we're ignoring now what you need at foundation level is why City are so successful. Their foundation is strong. And all they now do is add quality to it. You know, I don't know. It's a weird one. But I get what people are saying, but no one looks deeper. In terms of Chelsea, there was Smith Rowe. Is that a deal that could happen now, or is that completely off the table as far as you're aware?
No, it's not. It's not really one that progressed very far. I mean, the interest, there was some intent around it, but I think it was to do with the fact that he wasn't figuring. Also fitted in with that, again, the same similar profile to kind of Cole Palmer that they were looking for from within the Premier League. It was a cheeky one, and it wasn't a bad idea, but Arsenal don't want to be doing business like that right now.
I hear you. I totally hear where you're coming from, 110%. Are Chelsea likely to do any more business as far as you're aware in terms of what you've heard out there?
No, I mean, the message is that this is pretty much it after Cole Palmer is confirmed. Like you say, because there's this nagging doubt in almost everybody's head, like, have Chelsea got enough goal power in this team? It's Chelsea, and you just can never rule out something else happening. So, like Ornstein said on the Salah thing, never say never. I would always have that outlook on Chelsea, especially buying another forward, because it's say Nicholas Jackson gets an injury, which a few players have had recently. Like there's nowhere to turn to for goals. So it just would really, really surprise me if they weren't at least being open-minded about that right now. There's still a few exits to happen at Chelsea. Hudson-Odoi and Malang are both looking for exits. So I would expect those to come about. Conor Gallagher's being linked with Tottenham. It's a strange one. Conor Gallagher's family are like the most ardent Chelsea fans you can imagine. Like, I'd be very interested to see Conor Gallagher's family, who are like diehard Chelsea fans, cheering on Tottenham with their son at the heartbeat of their team. But look, he's got a career to look after. He wants to stay at Chelsea, but we'll wait and see if that Tottenham offer arrives. It might depend on what happens with Brennan Johnson. At the moment, Tottenham and Nottingham Forest have been a little way apart on, not even a little way apart, actually, quite a distance apart on the valuation of Brennan Johnson. That has to change today. If Tottenham are serious about this, Nottingham Forest want to know about it before we get to deadline day. I think the deal itself might go down to the wire, but I checked in on this morning with a good Spurs contact, and he said, look, as we're talking right now, there's no breakthrough, and Tottenham haven't come close to meeting their valuation of the player, so they've got to up the bid. So that's where we stand with that right now. They are going to up the bid today, but how high? That's what we need to wait and see.
Is Brennan Johnson to Tottenham the Harry Kane replacement?
In terms of the money, yeah. In terms of the style of football, no. He's obviously not going to play that style of football. In terms of the 9, you're going to get Richarlison and Son playing that role. Like, that will be what happens. And James Maddison is basically doing the work that Kane used to do in dropping deep. James Maddison's been fantastic so far. But when Harry Kane used to drop deep, and he was very good at it, there was always the problem there was nobody up front in his position. Well, now James Maddison is doing that work further back. And the job is for Richarlison to adapt well enough that he ends up finishing the chances that are built as a result of that play.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a few of the Spurs fans I've spoken to feel really underwhelmed by it. You know, dare I say, even let down slightly. And I do get it. I've been impressed with him in games, but be honest, I'm just not sure of his levels to be able to help.
Yeah, look, I don't watch loads of Nottingham Forest, so I can't. I'm not an expert on him, but Tottenham. This is not a new target for Tottenham. This is not one that's just come about quickly. I know that Brennan Johnson's been linked with Brentford for most of this transfer window. Nottingham Forest never had any intention of letting Brennan Johnson go to Brentford, and they made that very clear to him. Like, in their eyes, Nottingham Forest and Brentford, like, similar level they should be. Like, Forest, like, if we achieve what we think we can achieve, we should be fighting Brentford for, like, I don't know, 10th, 11th, 12th spot, wherever we can end up, as high as we can get. And actually, in terms of the size of club, we're bigger than Brentford. So we don't want to be selling players like you to them. And he didn't kick up too much of a fuss. He was kind of understanding of it, because I think in terms of his ambition, it was higher than Brentford anyway, even though Brentford have had a really good couple of years. Tottenham's totally different, and the player's head obviously turned once, especially when you're seeing the type of football that Ange Postecoglou is capable of. Tottenham played against Fulham in midweek, and there was a lot of players that were given their opportunity in that game as fringe players. Tottenham fans probably saw the team sheet and were like, oh no, what is he doing here? But Postecoglou had to take a look at some of these players with his own eyes to understand why they weren't in the picture. Now he knows. Now he knows why Tottenham's squad isn't good enough.
No, I hear you. So it's a really interesting purchase, and I'm intrigued to see how it kind of works out for them. Some super chats here. Luke says, smash the like button, people. Of course, go and get that done. Thank you very much, Luke, for asking people to do that. Thank you to Cal. Thank you to D and 94 Maku for all becoming members of the Football Terrace today on the channel. Is Amrabat going to start games? Yes. And even if he, again, I love this analysis from people, but he might not start. Then what's wrong with having good depth?
I said that about Mount, though, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, listen,
the same thing about Mount.
Every time I see a club now linked to a player where they've got good players in position, the rivals just go, but will he play? Who cares? Yes, he will.
Why do you pay him?
Send Haaland to Saudi. I reckon more. I reckon. Sorry, I reckon
one more Chelsea signing.
One more Chelsea signing, maybe.
One more Chelsea signing.
Maybe. I don't mind Haaland leaving either. Anthony says, after the window closes, some clubs will get left thin, because I predict the Saudi clubs to take advantage of their window not closing for a week later. a few will get hurt by it. There's definitely going to be some clubs that get hurt by it. I agree with you,
Anthony.
Anthony.
Saying a week. It's not a week. Like their window closes on the 20th of September.
Yes,
like,
2 or 3 weeks. Nearly 3 weeks. Nearly 3 weeks. Nearly 3 weeks.
I keep hearing like shows talking about how Saudi window is open for another week, and I'm like, but it's not. It's open for much longer than that. That'd be interesting. Like imagine the Saudi Salah bid comes on like September the 6th, and Salah's like, thanks for everything. I'll see you later.
See you later. Do you know what I mean? You get videos of him waiting in the car park outside the ground in Saudi, waiting to go. Hilarious. Listen, if he does leave like that after the window, the first Klopp press conference is going to be gold. The gurning and fake smiling is going to be mad. It's going to be mad. This here says Chelsea's buying potential is so flawed because everyone knows they will buy any crap potential in the next windows that replaces the previous. Maybe. I think they bought some good players, though. Anton here says this is about Chelsea. We have to get top 4 and at least 1 cup this year. Well, you're setting big standards there, so I appreciate you. And I assume you're a Chelsea fan based on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This here says didn't take Pep 4 years for his process to work. Again, but what you're ignoring here is that Pep didn't take over the best City team in the world, but he took over a team in the summer of 2016. In the previous 4 years, they won the Premier League twice, had finished second twice in that period, had also won the League Cup, had got to Champions League semi-finals, and was one of the best teams in England and progressing towards one of the best teams in Europe. So Pep, and they were well run, and a lot of the people that are still there now behind the scenes running the club with him were already in place. They brought a lot of people in from Barcelona before he arrived. It was set. So the club was well structured, well run, and still progressing and getting better up to that point. If Pep took over Man City, in my opinion, in the summer of 2008, or 2008, when they first got the takeover, I don't believe he would have created a Centurion season 2 years later. Because he would have to have built that club from almost, and that's not a dig. By the way, he'd have won the league because they won it in 2012. He would have won the league maybe even earlier because he's an even better manager than Mark Hughes, who was first there, and then Mancini. But you're comparing chalk and cheese. Arteta taking over Arsenal, a different scenario. Eddie Howe and Newcastle situation, different scenario.
Yeah.
Man United's current rebuild under Ten Hag is a different scenario to what Pep inherited, and that isn't taking anything away from Pep or trying to make excuses for other managers, but you can't compare every situation like for like because the circumstances are different. That's only my take on it, bro. Like City weren't average when Pep came in. They were very good, you know. Equally, by the way, let's just say Man United win the league this season. Hypothetical, don't get angry. And then next year come third. Year after come second and win the FA Cup, the year after win the Premier League again, and then Ten Hag leaves, a new manager comes in and spends 300 million. My expectations instantly are for him to win the league title because he's taken over a good team. So you have to be fair, in my opinion anyway. But yes, I support Chelsea. None of that North London crap. Fair enough, Anton. Chelsea should compete for the top 5. Brighton and Fatty. What do you make of the Fatty deal? Like, I mean, it's an intriguing one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good deal for everyone, to be honest. I mean, Ansu needs confidence, he needs form. He's fallen away at Barcelona largely because of injuries, but also trying to find a spot back in that team. When he does, he's always trying to impress so much that it's difficult. I think it shows that Brighton are now being judged on a different level to ever before in their history, that they can attract talent like this. What they're building is pretty immense, to be honest, at Brighton. I've got so much admiration for the people that make the decisions in terms of the vision, but also the recruitment. Fulham currently looking for a replacement for Palhinha. Can we just pay Brighton a fee and say, who would you recommend? Because we should go up to that person. That's how good they are. They just don't make many mistakes. It's a good one.
The only thing about the deal that I don't like for Brighton is if they turn him round, McTominay to Fulham. 30 mil?
I'd take
30 mil?
For a short term. If you're he's not as good as Palhinha, but he'll
KJ, is that real or is that you just asking? Is that you just saying? Let me know. Let me know, KJ. Probably just you. Me asking, he said. Me asking. Yeah, look, I get that. Look, I the only thing about the deal for Fatty that I think's a little bit off key is if De Zerbi and Brighton get his career back on track, he could just go back to like you've done
Barcelona.
You've done Barca's work. That's the only element of the deal which I think Brighton have made. Look, maybe more.
In the meantime, Brighton know that that's going to happen. They know that Fatty's desire is to get back to Barcelona. But if they get like the full version of Fatty for the rest of this season, or even half of this season, and then in the meantime, they are back out there working, finding like their own version of whoever's going to play that position. Then we'll get to next summer. They'll unveil some bloke from Belgium for €4 million. And they'll be like, "Don't worry, Ansu, you can go now, mate. We found a better version. He's cost us absolutely like." That's what they'll be doing. It's very smart. It's just very smart system.
It is. It is. As you say, though, I just think a lot of the big clubs go around hijacking each other's deals. I would just follow Brighton around like a bad smell. And whoever they're going to buy, just buy them. Just buy them and get them in early and save yourself loads of money. Listen, viewers, I want to thank you all very much for coming on today. We are live around 4:30 for the Champions League draw. This video will take you to it. So go and bookmark it now. Go and like it. Ready for that stream around 4:30 today. Dean, always a pleasure to speak to you, mate. It truly, truly is. If any breaking news happens between now and then, we will go live. Of course, that's what we do. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again soon.